bar. I'm also a qualified attorney in the state of New York. And I think this is relevant to my aspiration to lead the bar, because my membership of the New York bar has exposed me to how an association of lawyers can be managed better, more efficiently, and more effectively. In 2017, I was elected the chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association Lagos branch. I served in that role for 2 years. I've been a member of the National Executive Council, the highest decision-making organ of the NBA, since 2017. I was a member of that body from 2017 to 2021. And then I was reappointed in 2022 for a 2-year term. Whenever I talk about my time as chairman of the NBA Lagos branch, I say to my colleagues, you don't have to take my word for it. If you did not experience it, then pick up your phone and ask anyone who did. And, they will tell you. But I say with every sense of responsibility and humility that some of the best things for which the NBA Lagos branch is known today, the foundations were laid by my administration. We pioneered various transformative policies and activities that have become part of the leadership culture of the firm, of the branch. Whether it's knowledge sharing as a permanent feature of our branch meetings, whether it was the reconstitution of the Continuing Legal Education Committee, to mentorship programs for young lawyers, both group and individual mentorship programs, to the introduction of uncommon transparency in the management of the accounts of the branch. We started the practice of publishing the accounts of the branch on a monthly basis in advance of each meeting, giving members an opportunity to review those accounts and then come to the meetings to raise any questions that they may have. This uncommon transparency, encouraged many members of our branch to give generously to the branch, to the point that as at the time I was handing over, we left a lot of money in the coffers of the branch. Currently, I chair the NBA Security Agencies Relations Committee. In that role, I have spoken out, quite vociferously against the excesses of security agencies, for the first time in a long time in the profession. I led all the lawyers in Lagos on a protest march against police brutality. What that shows is that if I'm elected the president of the NBA, I will not shy away from speaking truth to power and being the voice of the people of Nigeria and holding government accountable. Why am I running for president? I'm running for president because I feel very concerned about the trajectory that the profession is on. And I believe that unless we come together as a profession to harness the resources we have within the profession to address some of the challenges that we have, sooner rather than later, we may not have any profession to call our profession. So when you look at my manifesto, you'll see that I have set out certain priority areas that the MB under my leadership will focus on. And these will include justice sector reform, strengthening of the regulatory processes of the profession, and improvement of the welfare of lawyers. I have 5 minutes. I don't know if I have more time to delve into some of the things that I propose to do as far as these 3 priority areas are concerned. May I proceed?
Yes, sir. You have about a few seconds more, so please go ahead.
Okay. So with respect to the justice sector, you will see in my manifesto that not only have I set out what the issues are, I've also set out what I think the solutions are. So, for example, I talked about nationwide court monitoring because, bad behavior thrives in secrecy. But when such bad behavior is exposed, the people who engage in them tend to trace their steps. So I've said that the NBA under my leadership will empower the branches of the NBA to monitor the courts in their jurisdictions and on a weekly basis, reports of this monitoring will be published. We're not going to be making any commentary saying that a particular judge is lazy. We'll only be putting in the public domain raw data that a particular judge sat only once in a week, and that on that occasion, the judge sat for only 2 days. I believe that only 2 hours. I believe that this sort of naming and shaming will bring pressure on the judges who are not performing for them to sit up. And if they don't, such data will provide a basis for lodging a complaint against these judges at the National Judicial Council. I've talked about the importance of separating administration of justice from administration of the courts. I don't think that our judges should be saddled with administrative responsibilities that detract attention or, take their time away from justice delivery. I talked about leading advocacy on behalf of the NBA for better investment in infrastructure and technology in our court system. It's sad that in the 21st century, judges in Nigeria still record proceedings in long hands. The NBA under my leadership will push advocacy to make sure that this is reversed. I've talked about the process of appointment of judges and how that process does not work and is not insulated from political interference. And I've said that the NBA under my leadership will look into what appears to be the overwhelming influence of the Chief Justice of Nigeria in the process of appointment of judges. So today, you have the CJN, who is the chair of the National Judicial Council. You have the same CJN as the chairman of the Federal Judicial Service Commission. You have the CJN appointing more than 2/3 of the members of the NJC. What that means is that if the CJN is determined to appoint someone a judge or to elevate a judge to an appellate level, it doesn't matter what every other person thinks, the CJN is going to have his or her way. I think that is unhealthy for our judicial institution. So these are some of the things that I propose with respect to justice sector reform. As far as the regulation of the profession is concerned, which is the second priority area, I've talked about the need to decentralize the legal practitioners disciplinary committee. It doesn't make sense that every complaint against a lawyer, regardless of where that lawyer is practicing, is made to a central body in Abuja. And when you look at the processes of the LPDC, you see that it is fraught with undue delay. I think that does not send out a strong message that the legal profession is ready and willing to call its members out when they misconduct themselves. So I have said that the MB under my leadership will work with other stakeholders to decentralize the process of discipline and to put a timeline of not more than 12 months for the conclusion of any complaint that has been made against a legal practitioner. And then I talked about, hello?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. I wanted us to, maybe start to look at some of the areas that you highlighted regarding what you intend to do. And I'd like us to mention a number of things. We talked about, common transparency. We talked about the protest against police brutality. You're concerned about the trajectory that the legal profession is taking. And I'd like us to also talk about the role. I'd like you to shed more light on the appointment of judges. We talked about how there's too much power centralized with the CJN, and many people have called, that this power be sort of in some measure divided, it's be decentralized. So I'd like to shed more light on what you propose to be done if you become the NBA president.
Thank you very much. So one of the things that the very first things, and this may be long-term, because if we're talking about solutions to the dysfunctionality of our court system, we must adopt short-term, medium-term, and long-term measures. So with respect to the point I made about the overbearing influence of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, and I'm not referring to any particular individual, I'm talking about the office of the CJ, that will require some statutory and even constitutional amendments. And the MB under my leadership will propose bills for those amendments to see that at least the constitution of the NJC is is not the responsibility of one single individual. Because, you know, what happens is that if you have one individual appointing 2/3 of members of a group, the likelihood that those appointees will look the appointer in the face and say, this person that you want to make a judge is not qualified. It's not something that's likely. So the MB under my leadership will move for the necessary amendments to be made to see that, you know, no one individual will have the power to appoint an overwhelming majority of members of that all-important body. Another thing which the MB under my leadership will do is to push for lawyers to get involved in the process of disciplining of judges. So today, the Nigerian Bar Association has 5 representatives in the NJC. But when the NJC as a body is sitting to hear complaints against judges, those 5 lawyers are not allowed to be part of that conversation. You know, they are essentially excluded. They play a role in the appointment of judges, but when it comes to the disciplining of judges, they are not allowed to play any role. And I say that the MB under my leadership will fight for this to change. Another important point that I would like to make is, so relative to the total membership of the NJC, you can argue that the 5 members who represent the NBA are not in the majority. They're actually a small minority. But the reality is that if we have 5 strong voices speaking for the NBA, right, in the NJC, they can make a difference. What has happened over time, and this is not an indictment on anybody, but this is what I have seen, is that appointments into institutions like the NJC and other statutory bodies, you know, have been approached from the point of view of compensation. So Mr. Ikwazom is running for president and Mr. X is supporting me. Then when I become president, I feel the need to appoint Mr. X into a sensitive institution, just as compensation for the support. I think that needs to change, and that will change under my leadership. The MBA under my leadership will appoint our best and our brightest, you know, the strongest voices that we have to speak for us, not only in the NJC, but in other statutory bodies.
All right. I'd also like, since we're talking about judges, let's stay there for a little bit before we move on. Just to quickly talk, I hear that Afa Mosigwe is back. I'd like to confirm if he can speak. Good evening, sir. Are you able to speak now so that I can bear that in mind when asking my question? Okay. Whilst we're sorting that out, what I wanted to ask you regarding the judges.
I can speak. I can speak. I can speak. I have to step out of another meeting.
Okay, great. I'm going to continue the next question with Chukwuka Ikwazom, and then I'll come back to you, sir. Let's talk about
I thought you would take me because I'm in another meeting. I have to excuse myself to come out.
Oh, okay, great. All right, so I'll come back to you, Mr. Ikwazom, but thank you so much. And I know that when we stopped on is talking about the judges, and the discipline of judges is something I wanted us to highlight a little bit. But Afa Mosigwe, SAN, is the senior partner law firm. His vision is to run a unified and inclusive bar that identifies problems, anticipates challenges, delivers solutions, and benefits to all lawyers. His mission is to improve the standing of the association, strengthen and unify the bar, while proactively addressing issues and the welfare of all lawyers. Good evening, Leonard Etienne. Thank you for joining us. You have the next few minutes.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. So I want you to give your opening statement before we get into, you know, the questions that we have already outlined for you. Talk to us about your manifesto and why lawyers should vote you as the next NBA president.
Well, I've served the NBA as a branch chairman, and I was elected a branch chairman at a very young age, 11 precisely. And I did excellently well, so that in 2014, I was elected the general secretary of the NBA. And I served in an administration that is still remembered as one of the top performing administrations in the NBA. We built the NBA house from the ground floor where the Okewale administration left it. We introduced the current personalized stamp and seal. We amended the NBA constitution to give a vote to all lawyers because we believed, and still do, that lawyers who pay dues and fees should not be left out. They should have a vote to determine who leads them. And also that all sectors of the bar must have a voice in determining the leadership of the bar. We also, for the first time, introduced membership benefit in the form of an automatic insurance cover for all those who paid their bar practice fee, and also got some membership benefits by negotiating with some businesses, such that especially hotels and airlines, to give discounted rate to lawyers, because we believe that people should have something to benefit by their membership of the association. At the moment, I run a campaign which under the slogan for a proactive bar. I believe that MBA at the moment is very reactionary. We sit down and criticize and do nothing. We take no proactive steps to ensure that the right things are done. We have no interest in bills that are being passed. We attend meetings or are involved in processes of selection of judges, and we do not say anything, and then these persons emerge as judges who have no business maybe being appointed in the first place, and then we sit down to complain. We see laws that are required to be amended, and we have no advocacy to address them. We see so many things going wrong in the society, and we do nothing. And that's why I talk about strengthening the standing of the MBA in the society. MBA must, as a critical stakeholder in the country, and in furtherance of his motto of promoting the rule of law, take charge of things and be able to speak and be heard on issues. MBA cannot afford to be an organization that only exists in conference room and hotel rooms. We must take steps that affect and positively influence the lives of people, and also rub off positively on lawyers to improve their welfare. We must stop this era of sloganeering and also issue statements and roll up our sleeves and go to work. We must ensure that our members have some benefits for what they do. And in my vision, which will be created, I talked about building a united bar and then an inclusive bar. Many of our members, especially those in the private sector, organized private sector, and also those in public service, are made to feel as if the bar is meant for only private practitioners. They don't have a very serious role to play. And we must expand the net of leadership to include every person. Every person must have a place at the table. We must leverage on our strength and on our membership, which spans all sectors of the economy and the public life. And we must put our association on a pedestal. And I present myself as the man who can do that. I have the most versatile of experiences of all the candidates. I've achieved so much in the little roles I've been given to play at the bar. And I constantly speak out on issues. And when I say some of the things I say, it's not because I'm running for election, because I have a track record of them. I'm probably the only candidate who routinely speaks out on issues of national interest. I've had interviews with respect to this with Arise TV, Channel TV, AIT, NTA, TVC to mention it, and also granted interviews to newspapers. And I've done a lot of work in mentoring young girls, because the problem we have at the bar, there are a number of these young people who join the profession do not have hope of where to go. And we do not, there's not enough job. We know we have a double-digit inflation, the unemployment rate is high. So these young lawyers, about 7,000 at the moment, who join the profession every year, less than 30% of them ever get employed. So we have a very huge problem. We must give hope to our young ones. We must protect our market, our industry. We must give them up. We must let them realize opportunities that are with them. We must inculcate in them entrepreneurial skills and urge them to do things for themselves where employment cannot be had. And we must be involved in changing the content of our legal education. Because the content of our legal education at the moment does not produce lawyers who are competitive or who can stand on their feet. We produce people who only to look for job in the job market. And we need an MBA that understands these issues, and we take steps to avoid them. And I present myself as the man who can do that, because we live at a critical moment where public confidence in the judiciary is at a low point, and the legal profession is not excluded. And we'll do everything to increase public confidence in the MBA and ensure that our members will be able to hold their head high to say, I belong to this association, my association does this and that, and is well respected in society. So I would like to leave it at this and take your question. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. But just in the interest of fairness, because Mr. Chukwuka had about 8 minutes. If you like, you have 3 extra minutes. If you'd like to speak some more, if not, we can get into the details of your.
I was looking at your time and the time it was almost time in there. But thank you so very much for the fairness you talked about. And we have to talk about fairness too. And we have a situation at the moment where some big branches like Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, or wherever don't dominate things. And I think we need to deepen participation of branches and make the branches to be much more productive and involved in what happens in the MBA. I intend as a matter of principle to have a fairness in the appointment of committee membership from branches. At least every branch must have minimum of 2. And the different sectors of the NBA must be represented in what we do. All forums, all fora that are not functional will be reconstituted to ensure that they function. And we must have a clearinghouse to ensure that, or a way of checking that the different fora are doing what they're supposed to do and do not become a tool in hands of a few individuals who may use it to advance their own personal interest. We must let the NBA work for all of us. It must work for all of us. We must give everybody a sense of belonging. An NBA must regain its voice. The society expects us to speak. And I never get tired of telling the story of how in the last few months when one chance robbery was on the increase in Abuja, some one chance robbers got, when they realized that some of their victims were lawyers, meted out more severe punishment to them and told them that these new lawyers are the problems in Nigeria. And it tells me that society expects more from them. And if criminals could realize it, then we as lawyers must know that it is in our best interest to change our thinking, to change our level of involvement, because people see us as enablers of corruption, as enablers of all the problems in society. The confidence in the judiciary is at a low end. I will never get tired of saying it. We must get things right. We must stop talking about this bread and butter issue of giving this to lawyers, giving that to lawyers. There are much more fundamental issues to be handled. And some of them are systemic and societal. We enable people to violate laws. We enable politicians to make a mess of our judicial system and we do nothing. Wrong persons are getting to the bench and we do not see the danger they pose to the entire society. I hope that someday the society will not get tired of us and then say, let's kill all the lawyers. We must, as an organization, show that the association cares about what happens in society and that we are determined to show that we are part of the reform and the change that the society needs. And NBA needs to elect that leader who has a track record of doing this thing. And I present myself as that. I always say that all the other candidates are very good, but I'm the best of all of them. I'm better than every one of them. I'm more experienced. I have a deeper understanding. If you also read my manifesto, you see that the manifesto really addresses the issues involved, the issues that if we tackle, we make for a better society, we make for a better NBA, that will strengthen NBA and put us on a higher pedestal. We need to do this fast. The time to start doing them is yesterday, and we are losing time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much for highlighting this very clearly. And yes, your manifesto was very, very detailed. In your manifesto, and just as you have spoken, you talked about raising and maintaining personal, professional, and institutional dignity. And that's a very key conversation to have. In the past year, the NBA, the judiciary has been blamed in a number of things, in a number of matters regarding how Nigeria's democracy has turned out. In fact, we would often hear the judiciary being referred to as the lost hope of the common man, as opposed to it being the last hope of the common man. It's one thing for you to say you want to restore the dignity to the profession and you want to ensure that, the judiciary is not used as a tool to dance to the whims and the caprices of the executive or politicians. But how do you intend to put that in practice beyond saying that you want to restore this dignity? What would that look like practically? Your audio has been disconnected. I think you're muted. Please, can you unmute?
Now, some of the things I've been advocating for, which are contained in my manifesto, people can touch on them. But you see, we are an NBA itself. We are not building an institution. We are building big men. We are using more patronage than the merit-driven system. We are losing sight of the things that count. Even in the positions we occupy in the NBA, we do not use them for an artistic reason. We do not look at the society at large as the centerpiece of what we are doing. An NBA must hold the leg of people who violate the law to the fire to ensure that they do the right thing. We must hold people accountable. And in the way we do this, we must be transparent. We must speak truth to power. In 2019, I chaired the election working group, and we issued a scale report of the conduct of that election, as well as it could be a biased election. NBA must be seen to care about building an institution and must at all times show that it's non-partisan, it's non-political, that its only interest is in making for a better society. And these are the things I talk about in building strong institutions, accountability. NBA must not be like that person who's into a physician here that I said. We must show that as a physician, we are healed before we can propose healing to others. We must look at the things in our constitution that make it difficult for us to have proper discipline of judges, for us to appoint that caliber of persons into the bench, for us to have a well-ordered society and for us to also do the things that place NBA in the position it should be. I'm sorry there's much noise and I keep moving and it doesn't get better. So we must build institutions, we must restructure, starting with restructuring the NBA secretariat, starting with strengthening the branches, starting with refocusing our priorities, our objectives, the things the bank should stand for, the things the bank should do. If we are not able to do this, we can't be strong institutions, we can't deliver on our promises. So we must get it right. We must focus on what will be done. We must build a society that serves as a moral compass to the society. That the
Okay, it does seem that we're having a network.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
We must spend less time in hotel rooms and conferences. We must do things that impact not only positively in the lives of our lawyers, but society. We must do the things that make people respect us. We must do the things that also improve the quality of legal services we give to our practitioners. And by extension, the quality of lawyers we produce. We must look at the university curriculum. At the moment, we produce only lawyers who cram, who are not able to think on their feet, who lack entrepreneurial skills, who are not very innovative, who are only aspiring for the job market, not people who are aspiring to be employers or who can do other things for the society.
Thank you very much for.
Now my time is almost up.
Yes, thank you very much. We have other questions for you, but I'll come back to you. We have our third asker in the room.
Okay.
The senior partner, the Law Crest LLP, Tobena Irojikwe. His vision is to build a courageous and resilient bar where no lawyer is left behind. And his mission is to transform the NBA into a modern association that employs international best practices to achieve its objectives with a view to making its members competitive in an increasingly globalized world. Good evening to Tobena Irojikwe. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very delighted to be here. I've logged in with the wrong link, and I do apologize. Now at least I'm on where I should be. So what do you want me to start with?
Well, we've been giving everyone an time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. There's a bit of a network challenge.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, but there's a bit of challenge with your network. I don't think it's very strong where you are. So you can maybe switch network providers, whatever the case, whatever option you can employ to help us, would appreciate that. But whilst we're at it, just to read the ground rules, because I weren't here when we read that, we're all going to be given opportunity to have the opening statement. It was initially 5 minutes, but we've increased it to 8 minutes. So we'll give you 8 minutes to have your opening address. And after that, we'll go into the details of your manifesto and start to see, why exactly you have decided to do some of the things that you said you intend to do and the vision that you want to share for the NBA. Also, at some point, each of you will have an opportunity to ask every other person a question. So you'll be able to ask Afam Osigwe and Chukwuka Ikwazom one question each. I would like to please ask that each of you do not, no one interrupts the other while speaking. I'm the umpire here, and the only person who has the power. This is the only place I can be able to tell seniors, my learned seniors, that I'm the one in charge here, just for today. I promise. So the floor is yours now. You have the next 8 minutes to talk to us about your manifesto and why should we vote you as the next NBA president?
Thank you very much. My name is Tobena Irojikwe, and I qualified to practice law in Nigeria in the year 2000. I subsequently also qualified to practice in England and Wales, and I indeed practiced in England and Wales for a period of 10 years. Before then coming back to Nigeria, and I've been in practice for the last 10 years in Nigeria. In the time that I've been in practice, I've worked in the public sector, I've worked in the private sector, I've worked, I was a litigator at some point, and now fully a transaction lawyer. I've been involved in the MBA in many portfolios, and I've played many roles, including being twice a member of the ESCO of the Lagos branch. I was also chairman of the Continuing Legal Education Committee of the Lagos branch. I was a member of the advisory board of the Lagos branch. I've been a member of the National Executive Council of the MBA since 2018. I've also chaired the annual general conference of the MBA in 2022. I'm the chairman of the Institute of Continuing Legal Education of the MBA, and I've served as a member of the National Judicial Council. And in the time that I've been involved in the MBA, I think it's a distinguishing quality is that I've had to work with, at the branch level, 3 different administrations of my branch. At the national level, all the administrations since I became involved in the MBA, and all the positions I've held have been by appointment, expected to work as a technocrat in many areas. But this is the first time I am seeking elective office, so I'm not your traditional politician by any sense of it. I've been driven to run for the presidency of the MBA, primarily because of the things that I experienced, especially when I acted as chief advisor and chairman of the policy formulation and project implementation team for the Oluwabata administration. I saw an association that was largely dysfunctional in many ways. And I was determined to do my best to correct some of the things that I saw were either lack of the right priorities or things that we could do much better and much more as a profession in Nigeria. What happened during the EndSARS protest was something that was very illuminating when we found that the first place that was attacked was our High Court, the High Court of Lagos State. But I want people to also remember that in recent history in West Africa, during the regime of Jerry Rawlings, the first thing that they did when they took over was burn all the books of all the lawyers, and indeed abolish all the courts for a period of 10 years because of disdain for the profession. And we increasingly see these sort of things happening around us. I served at the NJC with Datijo Mohammed, who was then number 2 man at the NJC and indeed the Supreme Court. Anybody who takes the time to read his valedictory speech would realize that he made certain very damning and very conclusive commentary on the judiciary. And many judges today talk about lampoon the judiciary themselves, both retired and serving. People, citizens of Nigeria, lampoon the judiciary, and that is an arm of government that is exclusively populated by members of the legal profession. And I dare say that every judge in Nigeria was once a lawyer. So, and whoever, it's what you put in that you get out. So we have fundamental issues with the judiciary. We have fundamental issues with the legal profession, the bar itself, and the way we conduct or indeed misconduct ourselves. We have forgotten that this is a profession of integrity and a profession that actually holds itself out to be one that promotes the rule of law and does the right things all the time. And I say that good character is something that we must all have in order to lead and lead right. So in my manifesto, I've divided my thoughts on how to take things forward and the issues to deal with into 3. First is the restoration of the dignity of the bar. And this is by looking at the fundamental philosophical ethos that drives or ought to drive our association, that our the restoration of the rule of law. And indeed, if you read our constitution, there are certain very weighty words and weighty phrases that I think should all talk about the promotion of the rule of law. When we talk about the protection of human rights, when we talk about independence of the judiciary, independence of the bar, and all the issues around that, those are things that should always inform the way we behave and the way we act. And then I move on to the second point I think is fundamental to whether or not we operate as efficiently as we ought to, and that is our governance structures. I think that right from the Legal Practitioners Act itself, which is 49 years now, it's unfortunate that we're still using that particular act and we haven't done anything to review it. I'm a big advocate of the Legal Practitioners Bill, which has been made in controversy. Yes, I think there are elements of it that ought to be tweaked, but I think that the fundamental principles contained in it would help our legal education, our continuing legal education and training policies, and also help the way we organize and the way we structure legal practice in Nigeria. Indeed, it is one of the frameworks that I think is very extremely faulty and we need to deal with. Our rules of professional conduct, in most times, they are observed in the breach. Some of the provisions there are things that we need to carry on and move forward with very quickly. Some provisions that have to do with continuing professional development and all of that. We need to look at it again. And then the fact that we have so many resolutions of the NBA that nobody's thinking about, and we haven't taken forward, especially secretariat reform. Our secretariat is dysfunctional, whether we like it or not. We spend too much time dealing with things that don't matter. We're going to move to a digital stamp system so that we don't have 20 people working on stamps for 6 months and earning an income that perhaps could be used or channeled better. Then the third element that I would look at, and this is the one that I think goes to the foundations of who we are, is the empowerment of our members. This empowerment is critical. And I've worked very much in my career on empowerment of the Nigerian lawyer in my personal and private capacity, organizing trainings and mentorship events fully funded by me. And then in public capacity as chairman of the CLE committee of the Lagos branch for a period of 4 years. And now as chairman of the board of the Institute of Continuing Legal Education. That's just one area, but there are issues that we have worked very hard on this when I was in charge of policy formulation and project development during Oluwabata's tenure. We developed things like an access to finance regime that should have even enabled us to approach the CBN classifiers as a critical part of whether or not we're able to run our businesses efficiently and effectively. There was also the minimum wage issue, which I'm very extremely big on. I've advocated for this since I was a member of in MBA administrations. The remuneration order was something that I worked extremely hard on, and my partner actually led the remuneration committee at the time that brought about that new thinking about remuneration. You can't hear me, or what?
Yes, we can. It's just that your time is up.
Oh, is it? Just
yes,
a few more things to talk about, and then I'll buzz off from them. So, for instance, I see a lot of waste. Sorry.
No, that was just for your opening address. We're still going to speak some more about your manifesto and what you intend to do.
Right.
And I really wanted to talk about, I did see that your mission statement, you broke it down into 3 pillars of how you intend to achieve your mission statement. But your mission statement is to transform the NBA into a modern association that employs international best practices to achieve its objectives, with a view to making its members competitive in an increasingly globalized world. And I want to ask you, what that would look like, what shape that would look like. How do you intend to incorporate maybe the use of technology? Because we're seeing the world, there's a lot of revolutionization when it comes to law and the use of technology. So is that something you're looking at? Is that what you mean by, keeping up with global best practices? And how do you intend to achieve that?
I think that oftentimes when we talk about international best practice, people think it's about technology. No, I was fortunate to live in another jurisdiction and practice there when we moved from predominantly paper systems to electronic systems. And I will say to you that what I found most amazing was the order and organization of things. Because you find that even when you employ technology, if you don't have good order and good organization at its base, you find that you mix everything up and you corrupt everything. So yes, I'm a huge fan of technology, and I understand what technology can do, and I will employ technology, of course. And in the work that I do as chairman of the MBA ICLE, everybody knows that technology is a huge component of what we do. So even to the base point of how do we get information across to 128 branches, we use technology. How do we get people to participate in our programs? Because technology would help include people in what we do. So yes, the digital MBA, if you look at my manifesto, you see that I spent a bit of time talking about the digital MBA and what I intend to do by creating a digital hub that helps us interface as lawyers and also interface externally. But the point I make fundamentally is that the international best practice that I refer to is first a conceptually mental thing. we have to, in a place where we don't have good organization, you cannot, in a place where we don't have good ethos and principles, talk about international best practice. If you put technology into that system, you might even achieve worse outcomes than credible ones. So earlier this afternoon, I was at the stakeholders meeting of the electoral committee of the ECMB, of the MBA. And one of the issues we were talking about, it's fully technological what we're doing. We've been in technology since the time we moved to universal suffrage. But our elections are made in greater controversy today than it was when we were doing the manual system. So I think that international best practice, first of all, is about a set of ethos, principles, guidelines that help us, that the best of the best in the world adopt in order to achieve reasonable and objective advancement results. That is what I mean. So whilst technology is a key component of my manifesto, and I spent a lot of time talking about the digital MBA that I want to see, I am, first of all, looking at the set of structures and organization that will bring about that. And that's why you will see that I talked extensively about secretariat reform. I looked at the Chidi Odinkalo report, which we have not been able to implement. I also looked at the KPMG diagnostic report. And I think within those, you could find some of the elements that would help us build a proper secretariat that could function like the Law Society or the Bar Council of England and other places. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to bring back Mr. Chukwuka Kwazon. Leonard SAN, why in 2024 are we still having conversation about remuneration of lawyers? And it's sad and disheartening to see that even in 2024 there are reports of lawyers earning as low as 30,000, 40,000. The organized labor and the federal government are loggerheads trying to decide where to find the minimum, what the minimum wage will be, whilst they are insisting for 250,000. The government is saying, they're not going past 60, about 62,000. So why are we still having conversations about remuneration? It feels like it's a repetition, is a cycle, year in, year out, tenure in, tenure out. And is there really much that has been done in the past few years about remuneration?
Thank you very much for that question. It's indeed very sad. And I speak.
Video, we don't seem to be able to see you. I think your video is stand up. Great, thank you.
You can see me now.
Yes, clearly.
Okay, thank you for that question. And I think it's a really sad situation that, like you said, we're still having this conversation. And if I have to be honest, I would say that not much has been done in that regard. What appears to happen is that anytime we have an election in the NBA, people mouth enhanced remuneration for lawyers in employment, but not much has been done. So I speak as a partner in one of Nigeria's largest law firms and as a partner in a law firm that has one of the best welfare packages for lawyers in paid employment in Nigeria. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can carry out your investigation and you see that from paying very competitive salaries to free gym access to free lunch, paid maternity of up to 6 months for female lawyers. Those are some of the things that Alukan Ebode is known for. And I believe that this places me in a position, this gives me the moral authority as MBA president to demand of other employers of lawyers to do the same thing. I acknowledge that all the law firms do not have the same earning ability. I acknowledge that. I mean, it's a fact. But the truth of the matter is that we need to understand, and that's what we do at Alukan Ebode, that your most important asset as a service provider, as a legal services provider, they are not your clients, not the books in your library. Your most important assets are your employees. And you have to prioritize their welfare over every other thing. So as an equity partner in my firm, I don't get to draw a kobo until all the obligations that are owed our employees are satisfied. That's what we need to, that's what we drum into the ears of every employer of lawyers. So I think the NBA should do, and what am I proposing to do if elected the president of the NBA? So the NBA has issued a remuneration report in which I think it was adopted by NEC in 2022, in which minimum salaries were prescribed.
Okay. So yeah, I was going to ask you a follow-up question, which you're already answering. So, and this question is going to go across to all our other aspirants as well. So what do you intend to do? I know you also spoke about the proper implementation of the remuneration order, and I'd like you to speak to that as well.
So when we talk about remuneration in this context, we're talking about two things. First is fees that lawyers charge for legal work, and then salaries that lawyers are paid by their employers. And I was speaking to the remuneration report that has prescribed minimum salaries for lawyers in private employment. And I'm saying that the NBA, under my leadership, will make it a condition for accessing any privilege in the profession. Compliance with the minimum recommended salaries will be a condition for benefiting from or enjoying any privilege. So whether you're applying to become a senior advocate of Nigeria, you're applying to become a judge, you want to become a notary public, you need a letter of good standing. You will have to show that because we can't go to court to enforce those recommended minimum salaries, but we must find a way to enforce them. And like I was making the point that because this is something that we're already doing in my firm, I will have the moral authority to go out to enforce the compliance with these minimum recommended salaries by every lawyer in the profession. In addition to that, I've said in my manifesto that the NBA will publish a list of law firms and lawyers who are complying on its website as a way of encouraging them, and then putting those who are not complying on the spot. My view is that if you do not have the capacity to pay a lawyer a wage that makes sense, then maybe you shouldn't employ a lawyer. But it doesn't make sense that a lawyer will employ another lawyer and be paying 30,000 naira, 40,000 naira. That debases the profession, and we must put an end to it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'd like to bring in Afam Osigwe to also react to this, to answer the question about remuneration of lawyers. We've seen what exactly is your reality, or what would you say is your experience when it comes to remuneration of lawyers? The poor remuneration of lawyers, and if you're elected NBA president, how do you intend to guarantee that lawyers are paid what they deserve? Okay. It doesn't seem like he's here.
Why are you talking to me?
Yes, please.
Hello?
I'd like you to talk about remuneration of lawyers, talking about poor pay that a number of...
So let me just do this meeting. Just wait for me. Let me say this. Let me say this. In my answer to a similar question at the manifesto, and I said, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Is it okay to please turn on your video?
I keep saying, let us not play politics with this issue. Let people think that NBA has the statutory power to
okay. I think we'll make a bit of an exception.
Should be paid or not be paid.
But
your question, time, you did not ask us to discuss what we pay our lawyers. I believe that all the candidates have. Can you hear?
Yes, we're having a challenge hearing you clearly. So maybe we can excuse you for a minute to maybe turn off your.
Hear
me? Okay, now we can hear you. Please go ahead. Your video is frozen, however, so you can maybe turn it off.
Hello.
Let say we can hear you, but it keeps breaking up. The network is a.
Well, can you hear me? Hold on.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Now, yes. Please
Hello?
go ahead. Yes, please go ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you. Please go ahead. All right. Would come back to Leonard SCN. Would have someone from the team reach out to him to let him know to maybe turn off his video, as that might help what the network would look like around his area. It doesn't seem like where he is has great network. Let's bring in Tobena Irojikwe to
No,
answer.
please do not go to him. I'm here. I have to excuse myself from the meeting, so I need to speak and go back there.
All right,
don't go to any person. Let me start when you are.
We want to hear you. We certainly want
an opportunity. If we ask this question, it's an opportunity for us to discuss the state of the legal profession. The fact that so many law firms are managing to survive. The fact that there is no legal framework for regulating what a lawyer should be paid. It's not an opportunity for us to sound boastful about what we pay. My law firm pays well. We buy cars, we pay salary, we pay for rent for people. But it's not about me. It's about what is the state of the legal profession, so that all young lawyers can benefit from it, so that all persons who are working in employment who do not have good jobs can benefit from it. Law firms end differently. A tier one law firm like Alukado Yebode can do all the things that Chukwuka talks about. But what about the law firm in Unewi? What about the law firm in Ekiti? If we impose an amount as a minimum of salary to be paid, do we have the legal power to enforce it when we talk about this? We don't. We don't. And I keep saying it. We should find a way of encouraging people to modernize their practice, to improve their earnings, to protect the legal industry, legal services industry. Let law firms earn better. When law firms earn better, in my thinking, we will be able, then there will be no justification for the law firms not to pay well, because if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. And I keep making the point that we should not raise false hopes that if we put it, they may be able to earn what an Alukanaye earns. It's not going to work. But I propose that we can go to NEC and prescribe minimum remuneration that can be paid by the different states or places using the bands, the shape bands as contained in the Remuneration Committee, Remuneration Order 2023. But this can only be binding in honor because it will not be legally enforceable. The National Assembly is the only body that has power to make laws with respect to minimum wage. And it has made a law with respect to minimum wage. No lawyer should be paid 30,000. But if the NBA wants to have a figure higher than 30,000, we have two approaches. One, in the short term, we can have NEC of NBA approve a scale after reviewing that was done by the Remuneration Committee, because the economy has gone bad. We review that and prescribe that, and it is only discretionary. Why we put the National Assembly when they amend the Minimum Wage Act, maybe to make a special provision empowering the NBA NEC to make his own prescription, in which case a prescription by NBA will have the force of law, or the LPRC, which made the remuneration order, we should include the scope of laws, orders it can make or regulations it can make to extend to salaries to be paid to people. When we talk about remuneration in the context of the remuneration order, it simply means professional fees. It does not mean salaries. Salaries is excluded. The power to make laws with respect to minimum wage and salaries at the moment is only vested in the National Assembly by Item 34 of this exclusive legislative list. It is only when they delegate such a power to the Legal Practitioner Remuneration Committee or to the NBA that we can be talking about it. We should be able to protect the legal market. Some big law firms are crowding the others out of the legal services market. Some small law firms are dying. We should encourage some law firms to merge. It's not an opportunity to throw a shade at other candidates. No, we have a problem that needs a solution. And we have a problem that none of the candidates can beat his chest and say he or she can solve in the next 2 years. It needs multi-sectoral collaboration for us to be able to achieve this. And we need to solve a problem that faces the legal profession. How much are lawyers earning? How much are law firms earning? How much can they pay? What is the state of the legal services industry in the different states of the federation? What are the branches doing to encourage lawyers to charge better? How are we doing advocacy on the remuneration order so that the clients, the consumers of our legal services know that they cannot price lawyers as if they were pepper sellers, so that clients who patronize us know that this is regulated by law. Such that how is the disciplinary process such that it will be able to be used to deter lawyers from charging peanuts just because they feel they need to survive. This is the conversation you're asking us to have. Because if we use an Alukanoye body to do a benchmark, we'll be holding false hope to the lawyers. Because if we use that, and if we are not safe, you cannot pay, don't employ, we'll push more lawyers into unemployment market. And we're talking about over 70% of young lawyers every year who join the profession and don't have any job. And we cannot adopt an attitude, if you cannot pay like big law firms, then leave them. Then leave them to do what? These are the questions we should be asking. Not using ourselves who are privileged as an example and making it look like those who can behave like us should not practice law but should go and perish. No, no, no.
Great. Afamos, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, maybe another perspective to look at it from would be that before you can ask for certain reforms and changes, you need to have been able to say that you in your own you've been able to implement it. But I won't have you respond to that yet because we're going to the question segment where
there is no candidate that pays the minimum by law firm pays 150,000.
Great.
We pay much more than triple the minimum wage to our coppers. The point is, we are not personalizing it. We are solving a problem for legal profession. That's the point I'm making.
And I'm sure that
it's not about telling the other person, go and cure yourself. When we know that none of us is doing less than that. I'm the only employer among the three of us. So I am in a good position. And I built a business personally, so I understand what we're talking about. And I understand what challenges some other persons face.
Please, I'd like to interject at this point because your time is up, but we will give you the opportunity to ask a question, and you'll be the first person to ask a question to your co-aspirant. I'd like to take a question to Tobena Erojikwe to talk about, your perspective regarding remuneration. We've seen diverse perspectives from the other two candidates. Whilst some would say that there is support of a minimum remuneration, others would say that it's only the National Assembly who has the power to decide what the minimum remuneration should be for lawyers. What say you?
So I enjoy the fact that this particular conversation has gone very personal. I just want to say this unequivocally, and if we want to start looking, can you hear me? Yeah, my video is on. So the point I make is I want to make this unequivocal point that, and I stand to be corrected. I am a senior partner at the Law Crest LLP. To correct Afamos, I'm actually an employer in every sense of the word. Secondly, if we talk about the remuneration packages and welfare packages of staff, I'm sure that my associates in my office will tell you that they are well remunerated and that they are part of our business, which is fundamental. I don't want to do comparisons, but we can talk about it another day. Now, but fundamentally, myself, my partners, my firm has been at the forefront of driving this conversation for many years. In fact, it was one of the things in Chukwuka Ikweazon's manifesto, chairman of MBA Lagos branch, and we're hoping to see that we can have that conversation at the Lagos branch. Yemi Akombe also had that in his manifesto as chairman of Lagos branch, a conversation about remuneration. Unfortunately, my partner, Anthony Moche, became chairman of that committee, and then later on became chairman of the committee at the national level that started this whole remuneration conversation. I think that as a leader and as president of the NBA, what you say matters. What you consider important is critical. People talk about the minimum wage. I am not a big fan of the minimum wage, as I am a fan of the living wage. There must be a living wage matrix. It's impossible that somebody goes to school for 5 years, comes out and spends another year at the law school, and he's paid an amount below the national minimum wage. So even if we are to accept AFAM's suggestion that, we shouldn't be legislating on the minimum wage, what about the national minimum wage? What about the fact that the white paper on remuneration itself, which I studied and participated in and gave my contributions to at the time, had a conclusive finding that the conditions of service in most law firms in Nigeria are deplorable, that most lawyers are underpaid or not paid at all, that law firms do not pay the payee firm, that people don't have HMOs where they work, that pension contributions are not made, that a group life insurance is not paid, even where you have the numbers that legislatively you need to follow. This is symptomatic of who we are. We're not obeying the statutes of this country as far as employment is concerned. So that's one angle to look at. And when you look at this conversation, there are two sets of people. There are those employers who can afford to pay, who don't want to pay because they oftentimes posit that when they were in practice and started off their practice, they were not paid. Some of them who said that they paid to learn. That's in a different world and in a different time. So we must say that this is what the living wage is. The Anthony Uche Committee did a forensic study and they engaged professionals to have a conversation about what the living wage should be in every locality in Nigeria. And it was after that empirical study that we then had bands of payment that we expect of law firms. And the truth of the matter is that most of the practices that we have, or we call them law firms, if they are regulated, they will not be law firms anywhere in the world, right? So I use an example. So afraid of change and afraid of having a conversation that's fundamental to our own growth and development. At a time in this country, the industry decided that if you don't have X amount of money, you're not capitalized enough. People said people will lose jobs and all of that. No, what it did was they enforced measures. You see, there are things that when you start enforcing as a matter of policy, we will be able to then restructure and rejig the environment and encourage measures, encourage different structures of practice. I'm a big advocate of if you cannot hire, don't pay. There's something mischievous about me being able to pay my rent, pay everything, and not be able to pay the people that work with me. I will go back to the, sorry, just so,
please. I want you to actually make the best use of your time. I'm going to add.
I can hear you.
Yes, I'm going to add a few more seconds to make up for the question I'm about to ask, but I just want to read.
Okay.
To ask you what you will do.
All right.
If you become the NBA president, what will you do to ensure? I mean, you're saying you believe more in a living wage as opposed to a minimum wage. So what will you do to ensure? You have 30 seconds.
There's already a report, right? There's already a white paper report that's been adopted by the NBA, right? And what that white paper report recommends is that we make non-payment of the minimum wage a matter of professional misconduct under the RPC. I would drive to make sure that that is actually done. And then I would, more than any other thing, pronounce as president of the NBA that we have this document that's been approved by the National Executive Council of the NBA, and that we expect every law firm in Nigeria to start applying it immediately, and we'll start engaging with the General Counsel of the bar to include this and take things forward, because a lot of work has already been done in that regard. Thank you very much.
For your answer. And now it's time for the one-on-one fireside chat. It would be.
I hope you heard me.
Yes, we heard you. We heard you clearly. Thank you very much. Each of you would have the opportunity to ask one question each to your fellow aspirants. And I'll be opening the floor with Ellan Exchange from Josiah Otigwe. Please, your first question to Chukwuka Ikwazom SAN, and then right after your next question to Tobena Erojikwe. Please go ahead. In case you are speaking, Ellan Exchange, you are probably muted. We cannot hear nor see what you're. Can neither hear you nor see you. Okay. I'll just wait for a few seconds. And you may leave your video off so that we can hear you to help with your internet. All right. I'll come back to you. I think I'll start off with our last speaker, Tobena Erojikwe. Please, you have the floor. If you'd like to ask a question, one question each, one to Afam Josiah Osigwe and one to Chukwuka Ikwazom. Your time starts now.
Well, my question to Mazi Afam Osigwe is would have to do with the work that he's done so far with the remuneration committee of the MBA, and I would want to know what he would do more as president of the MBA to ensure that the work that he has already done becomes more effective, and how he intends to enforce that remuneration order further then as president of the MBA. For Chukwuka Ikwazom, I would actually want to. Can you hear me?
Let's have Mazia from Osigwe answer, and thereafter we'll have Chukwuka Ikwazom respond. So it does seem like, okay, Mazi has exited the chat. All right, please go ahead with your next question. I think he's struggling with his internet.
Okay. Yes, for Chukwuka, I would just ask, I've had an opportunity to read his manifesto, and I wanted to find out how he intends to ensure that the things contained in his manifesto will all be delivered, and whether he is willing to give a timeline within which those things would be delivered, and whether also that he has found that need to change about our profession and what he's going to do about them.
All right, thank you very much for your question. The floor is yours.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part of the question.
Okay, would you that again?
I heard the bit about, I didn't hear the last part. I heard the bit about how I intend to achieve the things in my manifesto and whether I have set a timeline, but I didn't hear the concluding part of it.
All right,
the second part, the second part was whether there are things that you have observed as part of the electioneering process in the MBA that you think should not be part of our structure and our system, and indeed are unethical, and what you intend to do about them when you become president of if you become president of the MBA.
I thought we were going to leave it at when you become president.
I was referring to what the word you used.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. So I'll start with the last, the concluding part of the question. And I will say that there are many things that are wrong.
Your video seems to be off, sir. Can you please turn it on? Thank you.
Thank you. So I would start with the last question. There are many things that I consider to be wrong with our electoral process. The pressure that candidates are put through, the fact that every one of the 130 branches of the NBA expects that a candidate will visit them and talk to them. The fact that our electoral process appears deeply monetized, it's actually quite shameful, to say the least. And if by the grace of God I become the president of the NBA, a lot of these things will stop. I'm going to have a conversation at the earliest possible time with people who have indicated an interest to run for office. And I'm going to say to them that my administration will enforce the rules to the letter. The problem is not, if you look at the constitution of the NBA, you see all the things, all the stipulations there. I think the problem is that we have not had the political will to enforce them. So I'll have that conversation and I will make it very clear that those rules will be enforced and I will enforce them. You know, what we're doing at the moment is not sustainable. That's just the truth. With respect to my manifesto, every single thing that I've said in that manifesto is something that I have thought deeply about. As I say all the time, 2 years is not a long time. So if you want to be impactful, you have to hit the ground running. If, for example, if I'm elected by the grace of God as president, on the day of my swearing in, I'll propose a committee that will focus solely on the reform of the justice sector. I'll declare a state of emergency on the justice sector on that same day. I may not have specific timelines with respect to delivery, because you see, some of the things that I've said in my manifesto, some of them are things that can be achieved in the short term, others in the medium term, and some will take much longer time. So, but I will make sure to deliver results that will be very clear to members of the bar within the first 9 months of my administration. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your response, and I'm hoping that he was pleased by the response. I think the floor is yours now. Mazi Afamosigwe isn't in the room, so you'd have the opportunity to ask one question to Tobinna Erojikwe, and your time starts now.
Okay, even though Mazi is not here, I would like to ask him a question so that if eventually he comes.
Your video, please.
No, I'm saying that even though Mazi is not here, I would like to ask Mazi a question so that whenever he gets the opportunity, he can answer. But I'll start with my brother Tobinna. And my question to him is, Tobinna, you were a member of the National Judicial Council for 2 years. And during that period, there were appointments that were made to the bench that many members of the bar were not comfortable with. There were issues around senior judges leaving the judiciary, either trying to appoint their siblings or their spouses or their children onto the bench. I would want to know if you thought that that was an ideal situation. And if you didn't, could you please tell us what you did to show that you disapproved of that kind of conduct? And my question to Mazi Afamosigwe is, during the debate yesterday, he made a statement that he is the only employer of the three of us, and he repeated it during this session. And my question to him is whether, as a senior lawyer he is, he genuinely believes that someone who is an equity partner in a firm or a senior partner in a firm is not an employer of labor in that firm, whether he believes, whether it is his belief that only a sole proprietor qualifies as an employer. And I say this because he knows that when I applied to become a senior advocate, I applied as a partner. And one of the requirements was that I submit the partnership deed showing my equity share in the firm. So I would like to hear from him whether he said that as a political talk, or whether he genuinely believes that myself and Tobinna do not qualify as employers in our own right.
Thank you very much for your question. Your time starts now. Please go ahead, Mr. Erojikwe, with your answer.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, so the National Judicial Council is a council that is established by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And when you're a member of a council, the decisions of that council bind you, whether or not you took a divergent view, even at the time that things were being discussed. But I would only say this to anybody who talks about, and Chuka spends a lot of time talking about the reform of the NJC and what can be done and what cannot be done. I had the privilege and honor of serving with very radical and reform-minded people from the bar. I served with Olumide Abata, and anybody who has been part of the entire legal establishment can say categorically that no NJC, no representation of the NJC, the lawyers in it, have ever criticized the NJC itself except during that tenure. In fact, it was a lot of things that Olu said on our behalf that became the reason why a lot of attention was focused on the NJC. And I served also with Osaro Ehobam, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who is a deep thinker and a reformer. I also served with Ahmed West, and I served, and then later on with President YC Mikhail, and at some point with President Paul Osoro at the NJC. My views about the NJC are quite deep, because I know that some of the issues there are constitutional in nature. So first of all, before any nomination comes to the NJC, it would have gone through two steps. The first step is, if it is a high court of the state, the State Judicial Service Commission would send two lists to the national. So they will come to the National Judicial Council and say we have 8 or 7 or 9 vacancies. The National Judicial Council will then interrogate their preparedness and readiness to have those additional judges. And once that hurdle is passed, it is then the State Judicial Service Commission that then recommends 8 people on the preferred list and 8 people on the reserved list. And, you know, this is something that's so foundational to our constitution, because the governor of the state is the one who appoints members of the Judicial Service Commission. So whatever happens, to you,
Okay.
will come to you from
the
state government. So when those names come to you from the state government, you can only pick out. No, I thought I was answering the question. I should give an opportunity to answer all of it. Yeah. So can you hear me? It can't be time up. It can't be time up, because that's a serious question. Hello.
Okay. All right. Well,
okay, just give me 30 seconds to complete.
All right, sir.
Yeah, and then when it's for federal judges, it comes from the Federal Judicial Service Commission. At every point where an appointment was considered, I considered it not to be the right appointment. I objected aggressively to it. And the truth of the matter is that by the time I get involved as a council member, the interview committee would have actually gone through that and interfaced with the people directly. And the only bar person that's a member of the interview committee is the president of the MBA. So what we did aggressively was to force the hands of the NJC to start a review of the entire process of appointments of judges in Nigeria. And we've been driving that. We drove that till the day we left. And hopefully, if we have those foundational changes, we'll be able to go far in the reform that we want to see in the NJC. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Speaking about reform for judges, thank you, gentlemen, for your participating in this one-on-one fireside chat with each other. We got a number of questions from applicants and from lawyers around the world, and a number of them seemed to highlight what many would refer to as embarrassing with what happened in Kano State, where the judiciary was said to have been used as a tool for the manipulation of the executive. So this question is going to the both of you. I'll start with Chukwuka Ikwazom. Let's talk about the judiciary, the role that the judiciary has played, and how we've in some measure found that the judiciary has become very mixed up with politics. How can we restore some form of dignity and sanity, and how can we ensure that our judges are not used as a tool for political manipulation? And this is the question I'll be asking to Chukwuka Ikwazom, and thereafter Tobena will answer. Please go ahead, gentlemen.
So thank you very much. I think that the biggest issue with the judiciary in Nigeria is corruption. I don't think that many people would dispute that. Unfortunately, and let me be clear, there are many good, decent, honest, hardworking judges, but there are also judges that are corrupt. Now, the problem with judicial corruption is that it is something that is extremely difficult to establish, because the transactions that, birth corruption are not transactions that are done in the open, and that's the difficulty. I have a very radical approach to this issue. And that approach is that if a judge gives a decision or does something that is totally unsupportable as a matter of law, it can be either of two things. Either the judge is corrupt or the judge is extremely incompetent. Either way, the judge should not be on the bench. It's radical, but that's the view that I take. So take what happened, and I'm sure you were referring to the chieftaincy tussle in Kano, right, where a judge of the Federal High Court, a judge of a court with very limited jurisdiction, assumed jurisdiction over a chieftaincy matter, right? So applying my test, it is either the judge was corrupted to do what he did, or the judge was extremely incompetent to the point that he did not understand the limits or the limits of his jurisdiction as a Federal High Court judge. Either way, such a judge should not continue on the bench. So the MBA under my leadership will hold both judges and lawyers accountable. And the point needs to be made that applications do not file themselves. Suits do not file themselves. It is lawyers, members of the legal profession, that file these actions and suits and applications in court. So the MBA under my leadership will ensure that actions will carry consequences. The reason we're in the mess that we are in the country today is because people do things and they get away with them. We have succeeded in creating the impression that if you're big enough, you can avoid the consequences of your conduct. The MBA under my leadership will not tolerate that. If I am MBA president and what happens in Kano happens, I will make sure that the MBA as an organization presents a petition to the NJC against the judge and follows it up to its logical conclusion. I'll make sure that every lawyer that participated in that charade will be sent to the disciplinary committee to answer to their conduct. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now the floor is yours, Tobena Rojikwe. Still the same question. You might react to it. The drama, what many of you have referred to as some form of judicial rascality, what happened in Kano State. Talk to us about what your thoughts are regarding that Emirates tussle, the role that the judges played. And not just in Kano, we've seen this happen in several other parts of the country where the judiciary is seen as a tool or a puppet of the executive. If you become first of all, share your thoughts on that. And if you become the NBA president, how do you think that you would be able to ensure that this doesn't become the norm anymore?
I mean, I think that the relationship between most of the judiciary and the executive and the political class in Nigeria has become incestuous. I think that we have to, first of all, come to a realization that the biggest problem you have in Nigeria is a people problem. Yesterday, during the debate, I said that it's what you put in that you take out. The people that we have as judges today were once lawyers. If we do not strengthen our regulatory system and our disciplinary processes in the NBA, this matter will not stop. If lawyers are not punished for doing the wrong things, if we do not put ethics and ethical conduct at the highest echelon of our priorities, then we'll find that we'll keep repeating the same things. Because if you have somebody who is already corruptible or corrupted as a judge, there's nothing else you're going to take out of it. We've had conversations with judges, and judges are accusing lawyers of being the corrupting influences. And so I always talk about the things that we can do and do better as a bar, first of all. I mean, the bar itself is taken for granted even when it speaks to the judiciary about some of the things it wants to do, because our own credibility is in question. You know, the way we conduct ourselves and carry ourselves out is in question. So yes, I will, first of all, make sure that everybody who is complicit in this kind of matter, and I think that the judges and the lawyers who were involved in that kind of matter were completely complicit. It wasn't something, it's not something that you need a lot of intellectual rigor or judicial understanding to be able to interrogate. I think that they should be punished. I think that the NBA should take the lead on it. As president of the NBA, our members, first of all, will deal with them, make sure that they are taken to the LPDC, and that the NBA will be the party that is actually taking them to the LPDC. And I will also petition the as far as those judges are concerned. It's unfortunate that only judges are allowed to sit, and with two civilians to sit in disciplinary processes over judges. I think the entire framework of appointment of judges, again, so that not only judges and lawyers will be involved, but independents will be involved in this, so that we start to command the respect of the general public. We actually serve as a legal profession at a bar bench. I have more time. I continue talking. I can't hear.
Olive, you're muted. Olive, you're muted.
Thank you so much for highlighting that. I was saying that if you're done answering that, oh, great, thank you. We want to try and, infuse as many questions as we can within the next 10 minutes because we have to wrap up. But thank you so much for answering. I'd like us to talk about sexual harassment. It's the pink elephant in the room. And as much as we haven't seen any publicly decided cases of sexual harassment, I mean, it's not the norm that we see people being thoroughly investigated and found guilty. We cannot deny that there are cases of sexual harassment. So I want, and both of you have to speak to this as well, how you intend to curb incidences of sexual harassment, how you intend to ensure that not only is thorough investigation being carried out, but that we see the investigation through to a logical conclusion. As much as we blame a number of politicians, it's usually the norm. People would say that politicians get away with a lot. This is something that we also need to deal with. So how can you ensure that perpetrators of sexual assault and sexual harassment within the legal profession do not get away with it? And I'll start with Chukwuka Ikwazo.
Thank you very much. I think we need to look at what the issues are. I think the first issue is that when people do not trust their leadership, they are not able to trust that if they come forward with complaints, that they will be protected. I think that's the major issue because, I didn't know how big sexual harassment was in the profession because this is something that in my own firm, we have zero tolerance. I didn't know how big a problem it was until 2019 during the annual general conference when we had the Me Too session. And I listened to, revelations that, people made, how a senior lawyer would be traveling with a younger female colleague and book just one room for the two of them. And I was saying to myself, so these things happen. Why don't we hear about them? It is because people do not trust, victims do not trust that when they come forward with their complaints, one, that the offenders will be dealt with, and that two, they will be protected. Because, people are concerned about victimization. So what will the MB under my leadership do? The MB under my leadership will build confidence in members of the association. We would want to come across as leadership that people can trust, that they can come to with whatever issues that they are going through. When that happens, a lot of the victims will be encouraged to speak out concerning what they are going through. We're going to establish a confidential reporting channel that completely protects those who want to complain but do not have the courage to do so. We're also going to, thank you.
You're still muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
So I'm going to leave this permanently unmuted, so we don't have to do this. So yes, Mr. Tobena,
if you were, I was hoping that I could get maybe 30 seconds to just.
Please go ahead as quickly as possible.
So I was making the point that we're also going to establish confidential channels, the reporting channels, so that those who do not feel courageous enough to come forward can, submit their complaints anonymously. And then we're going to make sure that regardless of stature, regardless of your position in the profession, if a complaint is made against you, it will be investigated thoroughly. And if you're found liable, appropriate punishment will be meted. We're going to make it very clear that that kind of conduct is totally unacceptable. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining us. And now the floor is yours, Mr. Irojikwe. Your thoughts about sexual harassment and how you intend to curb it if you become the NBA president.
Olive, I think it's very unfortunate and indeed depressing that we still talk about these kinds of conducts as a profession, and to think that the increasing notion is that it's becoming much more prevalent. I always say that the first thing a leader must do is to have a strong voice. You must speak out against what you think is wrong. I was privileged to be involved at the time the last sexual harassment policy was being developed. I felt it was a huge step in the right direction, and I commend the Women Forum for having taken it up and also doing a lot in terms of advocacy. But I think we need to do much more to make sure that this thing goes away completely. And my suggestions or my recommendations on how to deal with this, or my approach on how to deal with this, is not very radically different from Chukwuka's position. I think the first thing is that in all things that we're doing as members of the legal profession, I think one thing that I struggle with is that lawyers struggle to represent themselves. We will encourage people to rise above some of the cultural issues that mean that we're not able to speak out against things that are wrong. I was brought up to believe that anybody who is in the wrong should be called out for being wrong, no matter how powerful he is. But yes, I will establish a detailed whistleblowing policy that ensures confidentiality of the people that are involved. And I will make it clear on day one that when any of these incidents or sorts of things are reported to me as president of NBA, or indeed to the committee specifically created for dealing with this, because we will set up a committee to deal with it. Now, once that committee makes a prima facie finding through an investigation of culpability, we will take it up with the LPDC. We would have a zero tolerance, because now I hear that men are actually assaulting men sexually in the profession, that women are assaulting men, that the predominant cases with men are assaulting women. What kind of environment is that? So we will speak out against it. We'll have a huge advocacy campaign against it. We will have a whistleblowing policy, and we'll make sure that there are consequences for wrong actions like that. And we'll have zero tolerance for it in any ramification. Thank you.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time with us, and thank you for honoring us with your presence, understanding that it's important for us to know what you're about, what your manifesto is about, and what exactly the changes you need to bring to, or you look forward to bringing to the legal profession. We're going to have the closing statements. There's so many areas that I had wished we still had time to cover, but unfortunately we cannot cover. I would have loved us to talk about how to checkmate the high-handedness of law enforcement agents, also emphasizing the rights of lawyers as well. Anyway, but I'm hoping that you can find a way to infuse it into your closing address. You're each going to have 5 minutes to give your closing statement, and then we can call it a day. All right? So let's start with, I hear 4 minutes, I'm sorry. So 4 minutes each. Let's start with whoever decides to go first. Would you like to go first? Since you're already on screen.
No, that's fine. I mean, so I come to the Nigerian Bar Association with only one thing, and that is a track record of performance. And everything I have done has been underpinned by two basic ideologies and philosophies. One is my belief that every association must invest in its people, and that the best of that association must give back. That is why you see me and my partners in my firm actively involved, albeit by appointment, in championing causes that affect our members. On sexual harassment, my partner Osobekwu is one of the big drivers. We're all involved in it. On remuneration, we've all been fighting about it. On continuing legal education, even in my own personal capacity, I have organized many training and mentorship events to uplift our association. As chairman of the CLE committee of the MBA Lagos branch, my track record is there. Set a solid foundation over a period of 4 years. And I actually was given a part I played in uplifting an arm or a part of the association that people did not focus on before. And I only did it because I know what I saw when I was practicing in England and how much continuing professional development can help change people's lives and incomes. As chairman of the board of the Institute of Continuing Legal Education, everybody has seen what we've been able to do to uplift the lots of our members. So I come to you with my track record of service and dedication and performance, oftentimes at my personal costs. It is there, the records are there. We don't need to go anywhere to ask anybody to verify. It is real, it is current. If for a period of 8 years, I have consistently been part of different administrations, working with them, and oftentimes being selected as the best performer of any of the administrations. In Lagos branch, over a period of 2 years, best performances of all the committees we have. As chairman of the Institute of Continuing Education, that institute today is a beacon of hope and light. And it's those ideas, ideologies, and transformations that I want to bring in to the MBA. The work that I did as chief advisor to Law are there and speak for themselves. They are purely egalitarian. They are purely about the Nigerian public. I said yesterday, and I say it again because my brother from Oshigbo repeated that he was the best of us. I'm not the best of anybody. I am a Nigerian lawyer like every one of you. I have no heirs. I want to serve. And I ask Nigerian lawyers to join me in this enterprise, in this partnership of leadership, to become great followers, great innovators. We don't have a monopoly of knowledge. My manifesto is there, it's all of 42 pages. We will implement all implementable resolutions, and we will do it in a period of 9 months, because everything that I've said we would do, we already have resolutions for them. We already have approvals to deal with them. All we need to do from day one is to start doing it, because our problems are known, the solutions are there, the approvals are there, and I have thought about it to a large extent. I've divided them to the things that are advocacy issues and the things that are implementable issues. And I tell you, if we implement all that I said that we would do in 9 months, the MBA will never be the same. And you will not find anybody less with the courage and the resilience to do those things that will ensure that no lawyer in Nigeria is left behind. God bless you all. And I hope that you vote for me on election day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that very warm closing address to Tobenna Irojikwe, and it's really been a pleasure having you speak with us here. You've given us a timeline of 9 months. We hope that in 9 months' time, if you become the NBA president, we can call you to have a presidential scorecard, and then you come and defend all the things that you promised in your manifesto. But thank you so much for your time today. And now it's time for us to bring on Chukwuka Ikwazom SAN. Sorry?
Thank you very much.
By the time you call me, I would have resigned if I haven't done all I said I would do, so don't worry.
Okay, we're holding you to account. If you win in 9 months, if you haven't done all that you have promised, we'll be expecting your resignation letter if you win.
Sure.
Thank you for your time with us. We have Chukwuka Ikwazom SAN, who will be giving his closing address, and we're hoping that you can also give us a timeline that we should expect to see a number of the promises that you made in your manifesto, but your time starts now.
Thank you very much. So, as I said yesterday during the debate, 7 years ago, I came to members of the Lagos branch of the NBA to ask for their support to become the chairman of the branch. At that time, I had nothing to show in terms of, a track record of anything that I have done for the Bar Association. But members of my branch trusted me. I guess they saw the passion in me. They saw some sincerity in my purpose. They entrusted me at a very young age, biologically and at the bar, to lead the largest branch of the NBA. Many years after I left that position, many members of the NBA Lagos branch still speak with fondness about our administration. I do not take sole credit for the performance of that administration, because a lot of the things that we achieved were as a result of teamwork. But I was able to appoint very competent people to chair and work in different committees of the Nigerian Bar Association. I reconstituted the Continuing Legal Education Committee before it became fashionable, and I appointed my brother Tobenne Erojipe to chair that committee. A lot of the things that we did, we achieved because I was able to provide leadership and direction for every member of the team, every committee chair, every member of each committee. Now I have come to the Nigerian lawyers to ask for their support. I can't get tired of saying that I am not running to be president because I feel entitled to it. I'm not running because I seek another trophy to be put in my cabinet. I am running because I'm concerned about the trajectory that the profession is on. I believe that I have the right values. I believe that I have the competence. I believe that I have the vision. I believe that I have management skills, a lot of which I have learned from managing the largest and most complex branch of the NBA as chair. I've been a partner in one of Nigeria's largest firms for about 13 years. I've been part of the leadership group in that firm. And I believe that I have learned valuable lessons that I can deploy if elected the president of the bar. I am probably the only candidate running for president whose work, experience, and knowledge cut across the two sides of our profession. In Nigeria, we have two sides to our profession, the corporate commercial side and the litigation side. I have experience that cuts across both sides. I understand what the issues are. I can carry every member of on each side along as president. I want to lead a bar that is fearless, that can speak truth to power and be the bastion of the rule of law, give voice to the agitations of the Nigerian people, and reposition the NBA to take its pride of place in the country. So I urge you, my friends, my colleagues, lawyers, to come with me on this journey of repositioning the Nigerian Bar Association. And I promise that I will not give you any reason to regret supporting me. In the first 3 months of my election, I'm going to have a town hall meeting across the 3 zones of the NBA, so that members of the bar can look me in the face and draw my attention to the promises that I have made. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. You both, all three of you, even though Mazi isn't here, you've spoken excellently. And it's been a pleasure to see you and see all the plans that you have for the NBA. We will hold you to account. And we say, may the best man win for the favor of the NBA. And just to mention that if you're interested in joining Ellan, Ellan is open to lawyers with interest in labor and employment law. The website is www.ellan.com.ng. My closing address would be that we've heard these men speak. They've expressed their interest to revolutionize how procedures, processes, and the journey of the NBA really is taking shape. But they cannot do it without our votes. You cannot sit at home and expect a change to happen in the NBA. So I'd like to urge every one of us who is here, and those who are not here as well, that come the 20th of July, everyone, please go out to vote. Encourage your friends, your loved ones, your colleagues. Everyone should go out to vote. At the end of the day, the change that you desire is in your hands, and you cannot complain if you haven't played a role in exercising your duty to vote and ensuring that we see the change that we so desire. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. Thank you to our wonderful audience and to those who have sent questions as well. Unfortunately, we can't take all the questions that we received, but we look forward to seeing you at Ellan Exchange 2025. My name is Olive Emodi, and I wish you all a safe journey home. I know that we're all joining virtually wherever you are. Just thank you so much for joining us and have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much, SAN. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olive. It's been an interesting conversation. Thank you for great mobility. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time with us. Have a lovely evening, gentlemen, and everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.